"Sir, this is a private event. You're not on the guest list, and frankly, you're disrupting the family's grief. You need to leave now." The funeral home security guard, young and officious, spoke with a chilling lack of empathy. Major Thomas Ashton, 78, his shoulders bowed not just by age, but by the crushing weight of losing his beloved wife, Sarah, after 60 years together, clutched the small, worn photograph of her he always carried. "But this is Sarah Ashton's wake." "I am her husband," the guard scoffed. "Yeah, right. If you were her husband, you'd be inside, not loitering out here looking lost. Move along before I call the police." 6 minutes later, as Thomas sat on a cold stone bench across the street, his heart a shattered ruin, 2 black sedans with government plates and flashing discreet lights pulled up to the funeral home. Stern-faced men in dark suits, clearly military security, emerged and entered, their purpose unmistakable. If you believe a grieving hero deserves utmost respect, not eviction. Type honor below. Major Thomas Ashton, U.S. Army, retired was a man adrift in a sea of fresh, unutterable grief. His wife Sarah, his partner, his confidant, his anchor for 6 decades, had passed away peacefully 3 days prior after a short, unexpected illness. The world felt muted, colors less vibrant, sounds distant. He was functioning on autopilot, numbly going through the motions of funeral arrangements, his mind replaying a lifetime of shared memories. He had served his country with distinction, through multiple conflicts, earning commendations for bravery and leadership. But this loss, this quiet severing, was a battle he had no defense against. He was a man of quiet dignity, his grief worn internally, his public face composed, though his eyes, usually so keen and alert, were now shadowed with sorrow and exhaustion. He'd chosen a simple dark suit for Sarah's wake, one he hadn't worn in years, the fabric feeling alien against his skin. He arrived at the elegant downtown funeral home, serene repose, a little early, wanting a few quiet moments with Sarah. Before the other mourners arrived, he carried nothing but the small, creased photograph of her, laughing, taken on their last anniversary. He didn't expect a red carpet, just a quiet space to mourn his wife. The entrance to serene repose was managed by a private security firm hired for the evening, likely to ensure privacy for the more prominent families the establishment often served. The guard on duty was a young man named Mark, barely in his early 20s, impressed with his own authority and the crispness of his ill-fitting security jacket. He stood with his arms crossed, surveying everyone who approached with a critical eye, clearly relishing his role as gatekeeper. When Major Ashton approached, looking perhaps a little disoriented from his grief, his suit not quite the latest. Cut, his pace slowed by sorrow. Mark immediately flagged him as out of place. "Can I help you, sir?" Mark asked, his tone polite, but with an underlying edge of suspicion, effectively blocking the ornate doorway. "Yes," Thomas replied, his voice steady but weary. "I'm here for Sarah Ashton's wake, room B, I believe." Mark consulted a small laminated list on a clipboard. He scanned it, then shook his head. "Don't see a Thomas Ashton on the primary family list or the expected guest register for the Ashton service, sir." Thomas blinked, confused. "But I am Thomas Ashton. Sarah was my wife." He fumbled for his wallet, his hands trembling slightly. "I have identification." Mark waved a dismissive hand. "Sir, the family provides us with a very specific list for access to private viewings. If your name isn't on it, I can't let you in. Standard procedure. We have to respect their wishes for privacy during this difficult time." His tone implied Thomas was an unwelcome intruder, a potential wedding crasher at a funeral. "There must be some mistake," Thomas insisted, a note of desperation creeping into his voice. "My daughter arranged everything. Perhaps she inadvertently left my name off that specific list, assuming my presence was a given. I am her husband of 60 years, Mark's expression hardened. He dealt with difficult people trying to gain access before, people making all sorts, of claims. This old man, with his slightly rumpled suit and grief-stricken, confused demeanor, probably just wandered in off the street or was some distant, uninvited relative. "Sir," Mark said, his voice becoming firmer, his posture more confrontational, "I understand you say you're her husband, but without your name on the verified list or a direct family member present to identify you, I cannot grant you entry. It's a security protocol to protect the grieving family from unwanted attendees." The implication was clear and deeply insulting. Thomas himself was an unwanted attendee at his own wife's wake. "Unwanted," Thomas repeated, the word a fresh stab to his already shattered heart. "I am her husband." He reached inside his jacket, pulling out the small, worn photograph of Sarah. "This is my wife. This is Sarah." He held it out, his hand shaking. Mark barely glanced at it. "Lots of people have photographs, sir. That doesn't prove anything to me. Look, I don't want to make a scene, but you're becoming disruptive. This is a place of mourning. You need to leave the premises now." He took a step closer, using his physical presence to intimidate. "If you refuse, I will be forced to consider you a trespasser and have you removed by the city police." Thomas felt a wave of utter desolation wash over him. To be barred from his own wife's wake, to have his 60-year marriage dismissed by an officious guard, to be treated like a liar, a nuisance. It was a cruelty almost beyond comprehension on top of his grief. He saw a few early mourners arriving, casting curious, pitying glances his way as they were smoothly waved through by another guard. The way. Humiliation was a public tearing of a private wound. He wouldn't beg. He wouldn't cause a scene here, at Sarah's final farewell. With a profound, soul-deep weariness, he lowered the photograph. "I see," he said, his voice barely a whisper. He turned, his shoulders slumped, and walked slowly away from the entrance, away from his wife, out into the encroaching twilight. He found a cold stone bench across the street directly opposite the funeral home and sank onto it, the small photograph clutched tightly in his hand, tears finally tracing paths down his weathered cheeks. Major Ashton sat on the bench, a solitary figure shrouded in grief in the deepening twilight. He didn't know what to do. His daughter, Amelia, was likely already inside, consumed by her own sorrow and the duties of hosting. He didn't want to add to her burden by calling her out, by creating a scene over this appalling misunderstanding. He felt utterly alone, cast out from the one place he needed to be most. He fumbled for his phone, not to call Amelia, but an older number, one he kept for emergencies of a very different kind. It was the direct line to General Alistair Carmichael, retired, his former commanding officer from his last active duty assignment at the Pentagon, a man who had become a lifelong friend and confidant, a man who had known and loved Sarah almost as much as Thomas did. Carmichael was now a senior civilian advisor within the Department of Defense, still wielding considerable quiet influence. Thomas dialed, his thumb clumsy. Carmichael's familiar, direct voice answered. "Alistair." "Tom? My God, man, I was just about to call you." Amelia left a message about Sarah. "I am so sorry, old friend, devastated. I was planning to drive down for the service tomorrow. Is there anything at all I can do right now?" Thomas took a shaky breath, the unexpected warmth and immediate understanding from his old friend almost undoing him. "Actually, Alistair, there is. I'm at the funeral home now for the wake, Serene Repose, on Elm Street, and they won't let me in." There was a stunned silence on the other end. "They what? Tom? What in blazes are you talking about? Won't let you into Sarah's wake?" Thomas quickly explained the situation, the guard, the list, the dismissal, being told he wasn't her husband, that he was an unwanted attendee. He kept his voice even, factual, but the underlying pain was evident. General Carmichael listened, and Thomas could almost feel the temperature on the other end of the line dropping several degrees, the calm replaced by a palpable, icy fury. "Serene Repose on Elm Street, you said?" Carmichael's voice was dangerously quiet. "The security guard's name, if you got it?" "Mark? I think he said. "Understood, Tom. You stay right where you are on that bench. Do not move. Do not engage. Further, I am making one phone call. This abomination will be rectified within minutes. And then I'm getting in my car. I'll see you shortly." The line clicked dead. Thomas wasn't sure what rectified meant in Carmichael's terms, but he knew his old friend. When Alistair Carmichael said he was making one phone call from his current position, it usually meant that very senior people were about to have a very bad day. He waited, the cold seeping into his bones, watching the lights of the funeral home, feeling utterly disconnected from the rites beginning within for his beloved Sarah. Less than 6 minutes after General Carmichael's call ended, the quiet dignity of Elm Street was shattered. 2 black official-looking sedans, the kind that spoke of government business and no-nonsense occupants, swept around the corner, their discreetly flashing emergency lights clearing a path through the evening traffic. They pulled to a smooth, authoritative stop directly in front of Serene Repose, double parking without apology, effectively blocking the entrance. Doors opened, and 4 men in dark, impeccably tailored suits emerged. They moved with the quiet, coordinated precision of a well-drilled team. They were not local police. Their bearing was different, more severe, an air of federal authority clinging to them. They were, in fact, a Department of Defense Special Liaison Detail, often used for sensitive family assistance or dignitary protection, dispatched from a nearby military installation on General Carmichael's direct, non-negotiable order. 2 of the men immediately but respectfully secured the entrance to the funeral home, politely but firmly stopping anyone from entering or leaving. The other 2, their expressions grim, strode directly inside. The funeral home director, Mr. Abernathy, a man who prided himself on smooth, discreet services, rushed forward, alarmed by the sudden, unannounced arrival of official-looking men taking control of his entrance. "Gentlemen, what is the meaning of this? This is a private service." The lead agent, a tall, stern-faced man, flashed credentials that made Mr. Abernathy's eyes widen. "Sir, we are here under direct orders from the Pentagon regarding a serious matter of disrespect shown to a distinguished U.S. Army major, retired, and his deceased spouse. We understand Major Thomas Ashton has been denied access to his wife's wake by your security personnel." Abernathy looked horrified. "Denied access? Major Ashton? But that's impossible. He's the widower." Mark, the young security guard who had been preening near the doorway, suddenly found himself face to face with the second agent, whose gaze was like ice. "You are Mark, the security officer on duty at this entrance?" the agent asked, his voice devoid of inflection. Mark nodded dumbly, his earlier arrogance vanishing. "You denied Major Ashton entry?" Mark stammered. He wasn't on the list. I was following procedure." "Your procedure," the agent said, cuttingly, "has caused immense distress to a decorated combat veteran at the moment of his profound grief and has triggered a Pentagon-level response. You will accompany us to Major Ashton immediately and offer your profound apology. Then you will be relieved of your duties here tonight. Your company will be hearing from the Department of Defense regarding their contract suitability for events involving military families." The 2 agents, with a pale and trembling Mark in tow and a profusely apologizing Mr. Abernathy scrambling behind them, exited the funeral home and crossed the street to where Major Thomas Ashton still sat on the cold stone bench. The lead agent approached Thomas respectfully. "Major Ashton, sir, my name is Special Agent Harris. We are here on the orders of General Alistair Carmichael in the Department of Defense. Please accept our deepest condolences on the loss of your wife, Sarah, and please accept our sincerest apologies for the completely unacceptable treatment you have received here tonight." He gestured curtly toward Mark. "This individual has an apology to make to you personally." Mark, prodded forward by the other agent, mumbled a terrified, incoherent apology, his eyes darting nervously between the agents and the grieving veteran. Thomas looked at the young guard, seeing not malice, perhaps, but profound ignorance and a petty abuse of minor authority. He was too weary, too heartbroken for anger at this boy. He just gave a small, dismissive nod. "Major Ashton," Agent Harris continued, "General Carmichael is en route. He asked us to ensure you are immediately escorted inside to be with your wife and family, with full honors and respect. Your daughter, Amelia, has been discreetly informed of the situation and is waiting for you. These gentlemen," he indicated his team, "will remain on site to ensure there are no further procedural issues and to provide any assistance you or your family may require." He then offered his arm to Thomas. "Sir, if you would allow us." Slowly, leaning on his cane and the agent's offered arm, Major Thomas Ashton rose from the bench as he was escorted back across the street, past the now silent and respectful funeral home staff, toward the room where his beloved Sarah lay. The two black sedans remained, their presence a silent, powerful statement. The Pentagon had indeed sent armed escorts, not to protect him from a physical threat, but to protect his dignity, to ensure his right to mourn, and to deliver a swift, unmistakable message that some lines of respect, especially for those who have served and sacrificed, must never ever be crossed. The wake continued, but under a new solemn understanding. The story of the Guard, the grieving Major, and the Pentagon's intervention would serve as a harsh lesson for serene repose and a poignant reminder for all. Grief and honor demand compassion. That no list, no rule, no officious gatekeeper should ever be allowed to deny. Subscribe to Hidden Sparks if you believe our heroes, in their moments of deepest sorrow, deserve nothing less than our utmost respect and unwavering support.